Hey guys, it's Warren here again with Copeland Small Engine Repair. Welcome back. Today's video is going to be more about some information for an old zero turn that a guy brought me. One of my good customers a few weeks ago, hell, probably a month or so ago, brought me an old zero turn. It looks like he drug it out of a field. He said he did some work for some people, and for some of the money they owed him, they gave him this old zero turn. And when he called me, he didn't tell me it was an old rotted zero turn. He just called me and said, "Hey, I got a zero turn that needs some work. Can I bring it to you?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure." And then he brings me this thing, and it's a mess. The brand name of this old zero turn is Yazoo Kees. It's spelled Yazookees. Yazoo Kees is the brand name of this zero turn. I've never heard of them before. I've never seen one. But he brought this thing to me, and man, it was a mess. The first thing I did was get the engine running and make sure that the transmissions work, and I got the wiring and the throttle and the choke. I got all that done. But today's video, this thing the deck was a mess. Everything on the deck, all the deck bearings were shot. And when I finally got to where I turned the deck on, it sounded like a thrash machine. So I told him, I need to replace everything on the deck. Well, when I got down and started looking at the deck has taper lock pulleys. They're an old type, I would consider them an old type pulley where you put the pulley on it. Then it has this big heavy solid steel collar that goes down over that, and there's two little bolts that go on it, and they pull this tapered collar down into the center of the pulley and kind of locks it on there. And if you don't know how to get those off, they can be a pain. I've been dealing with them, since I was a kid, but he had tried to get two of those off. He broke one of them, and he was so mad he didn't know how to get them off. But once he brought it to me, he said he wants to get rid of all that taper lock stuff. He wants a simpler, more later model type spindle and pulley setup on it. And I told him, I said, those original ones, they're heavy duty. The original spindles are heavy duty. The original pulleys are like cast iron, they're all, he said, "I don't care." He said, "I want that crap off of there in case I have to service this thing. I want to be able to work on it myself, and I want it to be a lot easier." He said, "I just want a standard, like, later model spindle on it with a pulley that just drops down on top of the spindle with one nut that holds it on." And I said, "Okay, you're the customer. I'll, whatever you want." So I had to find some spindles that would work in this old thing. I don't think they made Yazoo Kees zero turns from what I can find. I think they quit making them in like around 95, 96. I may be wrong. But this thing looks old as hell. It's a mess. But I found all the parts to put the deck back together like he wants. I found a later model looking spindles and the pulleys that fit them and the blade bolt that fits that spindle. All this stuff I had to find on the internet. So today's video is going to be for all you guys that may come across a Yazoo Kees zero turn, and you want some cheaper parts for it. You don't want to have to buy the original type. I'm guessing the original type spindles and pulleys are still available if you dig around and look for them. But I'm going to give you all the specs and part numbers for all the parts I found. The spindle, the pulley, the blade bolt. I've got the blades. The original blades look fine. They're in really good shape and they'll work. So I'm going to give you a part number for the blades, even though I didn't have to find those. So if you come across a Yazoo Kees zero turn in your shop, or if you own one and you need to work on it, and it just saves you some time digging around on the internet looking for these part numbers and what the parts look like. So let me get set up, and I'm going to show you the hole in the deck that the spindle has to fit in, and the measurement of that hole and the bolt spacing and everything. And then I'm going to show you all the parts I found, and then I'm going to show you just a sheet of paper that has all the part numbers and for each part listed, so you can just get on Amazon or eBay or whatever your favorite website is and look up these parts and order you some parts for your old Yazoo Kees zero turn. So let's get set up and I'll show you the mower I'm talking about. Okay, this is it right here. There's the name, Yazoo Kees, and the seat's completely rotted. The cushions on the seat were just rotted off, so I'm gonna have to order him a new seat. And the engine is a big V-twin Kohler. It's a horizontal shaft engine. And I had to, he brought me a new carburetor. he had ordered for it. Just an aftermarket carburetor he found, and I put it on, and it worked. The original fuel pump was this type that's made into the valve cover, and he didn't want this type on there. He wanted one of these, just a standard little hockey puck. I call them a hockey puck fuel pump. So what I did for the pulse line for this fuel pump, I gutted the original fuel pump. I just gutted this one, and so I could use this as the source for the pulse for the fuel pump. But I should have made a video on how I did that, but it's pretty simple. You just take all the guts out of it and make sure this side's plugged up, and it's all closed up. This engine actually had the holes already in the shroud for the bolts for this type of fuel pump. These bolts I put in here went in these little things that were already there for this fuel pump. So I got him a fuel pump on there, a new choke cable. Everything works great, man. The thing cranks up. It runs like brand new. I mean, it runs great. I drove it around. The transmissions work great. I did turn the blades on, so the electric clutch works. He's almost ready to go, but the deck had these. Here's one of the original spindles right here. That's what the original spindle looked like, and I took one of them apart, and I mean the bearings in these things are shot to hell. To get the bearings out, you got to take this little cover off. There's like 3 tiny bolts to hold a metal cover on it. Then there's a little snap ring down in a groove. There's a metal cover on both ends and a snap ring on both ends to get all that off so you can get to the bearings, but they were just rotted. And the pulleys that went on these, here's one of the pulleys. Here's one of the pulleys that went on the old spindles, and it has this taper lock in it. This is 2 pieces, and these look like cast iron pulleys. And I tried to tell him, these are probably better than aftermarket stuff you're going to find, but he wants to get rid of this crap. He broke the other pulleys trying to get them off. If you've never dealt with these taper lock pulleys, they're pretty simple. When you get it, it'll have 2 bolts in it, and there'll be a bolt in each one of these holes that go into a threaded hole down in here. And all you do is take those 2 bolts out, put them back in these threaded holes, and then gradually crank down on both of them till it pushes this collar up off of there, and you just pick it up off of there, and then you can get your pulley off. But he wants to get rid of all this crap. I don't blame him. They're kind of a pain. So, and I got him these other flat idler. There's 2 flat idlers and 1 V-groove idler. And there's the hole that they go in. Right there's the spindle hole. But I'm gonna reset the camera up. We'll measure this hole down here, so you'll be able to tell, if you're dealing with the exact same parts I'm dealing with, if your Yazoo Kees has this same configuration right here. And then I'll show you measurements of the pulleys and all that. And then at the end of the video, I'll show you a list of part numbers for all these parts I found. Okay, I measured this hole right here, and the hole for the spindle is right at 3 1/4 inches across at its widest point. The bolts are about 3 1/4 inches across center to center, the bolt holes. So it's about 3 1/4 for the hole and 3 1/4 from center to center for these bolt holes. So you can, just make sure your deck is like this when it probably is. And the spindle I found, the aftermarket or later model spindle I found, looks like this. And this little thin metal cover down here. See this little cover, it will slide. It slides down and covers the bottom of the spindle. But since the blade and the pulley isn't on it, everything's kind of moving around. Now, if you see these online, if you're looking for these, and you see a picture of these, and you're like, well, that don't look like the ones I need. This part right here, because there's no blade or pulley on it, the arbor through the middle of it, it moves back and forth because there's nothing on it to keep it from moving. See, so the picture, if you find these online, the picture of the bottom of it may look like that, or you can push this back out, it may look like that, depending on where this, where it was at when I took the picture. And the top of it may look like this, or it may look like that, just depending, you know, because the arbor slides back and forth because there's no pulley or blade on it. But that's what it looks like. Like I said, I'll show you a list of part numbers when I get done. So that's the spindle. The pulleys you need for those spindles look like this. See this big solid metal hub in the middle of it? So they're not just a flat stamped metal pulley. They have these, you need to get these with this little hub on it. Looks like that. So that's the pulley for each spindle. And there's one V-groove idler pulley on the deck, and this is it right here. And in the list of part numbers I give you, I'm going to show you the measurements of the pulley, the measurement of the center hole, so you can make sure, you know, you're looking at the right one. But I'm going to give you part numbers for all this so you'll know, you know, it's the right one. But this is the V groove. See how the groove in it shaped like a V? It's not a flat idler. It's a V groove. So there's one of these, and there's two of these big ones. Now these are flat idlers. See, they're flat. They're not a V groove. There's two of these big ones. And I'll give you the part number for these and the measurements and everything. And I'm going to go ahead and replace all the bolts that bolted the spindles to the deck. And all the bolts are just a standard 5/16 18 bolt. I got an 1.5 inches, which is plenty long enough. And I got a box of nylock nuts. You want nylock. They got that little nylon ring around the top of them. It just keeps them from vibrating loose. You don't have to worry about putting a lock washer on them. They're just easier to use. And there's 15 in here. So you need 12. You need 12 of these bolts, these standard 5/16 18 bolts. And I just get a box of these nuts. They're 5/16 18 nuts with a nylock. Got the nylock nuts. But you need 12 of these. And these spindles right here do not come with the blade bolts. So you got to buy 3 blade bolts. And I'll give you the part number for these blade bolts. But these are what hold the blades on. And here's his blades. This is what the blade looks like. And his blades are in really good shape. I'm going to go ahead and sharpen them, but they look good. Anyway, that's all for that section.